What up, YouTube? Here with a post-fight video of Anthony Joshua versus Jermaine Franklin. Now, before I give y'all the summary of what happened in the fight, I'm going to tell y'all the results first. Anthony Joshua was able to win this fight via unanimous decision. I personally had the fight score 119 to 109 in favor of Anthony Joshua. And to sum up what happened in the fight, my scorecard should show y'all this was a very one-sided fight in favor of Anthony Joshua. And Joshua, he showed in this fight a lot of technical improvements. He did a good job of maintaining the distance and making sure that Franklin doesn't get in the range to where he could let off his shots. And Anthony Joshua did a good job at sharpening his punches and fluctuating his punches as well as being accurate with them. And he did a good job at establishing the jab as well, making sure that Jermaine Franklin doesn't get any closer than the rangefinder. And that rangefinder in this fight was that jab of his, and it was very accurate and landing flush on Jermaine Franklin throughout the whole fight. And whenever Jermaine Franklin did get in close, Anthony Joshua would use his weight and clinch onto Jermaine Franklin whenever Franklin would get in a close range to where he could land his punches. And Anthony Joshua would frustrate Jermaine Franklin by putting all his weight down on Jermaine Franklin, who's the shorter fighter. And Jermaine Franklin, he wasn't really getting hurt or affected by Anthony Joshua's shots. He was answering back. It's just that he was out of reach and not in range to where he could effectively land his shots versus Anthony Joshua whenever he would answer back. Because anytime Anthony Joshua would land his shots, Jermaine Franklin would rapidly answer back with shots of his own. It's that Anthony Joshua was out of reach for Franklin to find success with his shots. And Jermaine Franklin, he was getting accumulation of shots adding up whenever Anthony Joshua would land his shots throughout the whole fight, and that was more effective. It was the accumulation of punches that was, as I said, adding up and tallying on as the fight would go on. And boxing fans know Anthony Joshua for having raw power. That aspect of his skills wasn't displayed in this fight all that much. As I said, he showed more of a fundamental improvement in this fight, more than his highlight reel knockouts that he's built a reputation on. And this was his first fight back from those two fights versus Alexander Usyk. He's been fighting for a world title since then. Now he's added a world title picture scene, and he's still one of the biggest draws out there in heavyweight boxing. And the most marketable fight for him would be versus someone of his notoriety, a name like Deontay Wilder, who had an impressive comeback fight. And another fighter that could make a marketable match versus him would be another fight versus Andy Ruiz. And Zhang, who had a win versus Joe Joyce the other week. That would be a good fight, a marketable match as well for Anthony Joshua. Now, those fights have threats on Joshua as far as him possibly losing that fight, because any of those fighters, including Joyce as well, could possibly hand him a loss. And the odds are quite even if he takes on fighters that I've named. And another fight that could be a good fight for Anthony Joshua would be a rematch versus Parker as well. They had a good close contest as well, so I wouldn't mind seeing that fight happen again as well. And Anthony Joshua, him fighting Jermaine Franklin. Jermaine Franklin wasn't the best opponent that Anthony Joshua could have a fight against. But I get it though. It was because it was his comeback fight from contending for the world title, and it was for him to have a bounce back performance of a fight. Not saying Jermaine Franklin isn't a good fighter. I say he's above a journeyman level, and he isn't, I say, amongst the top ranks in the heavyweight division. As I said, he's a good fighter, but he's not at that world title level, and that's why it was more of a safe bet for Anthony Joshua to have a fight versus someone like Jermaine Franklin, and not any of the other fighters that I named that could potentially have a fight versus Anthony Joshua in the future. And y'all let me know what y'all opinions are from this fight that y'all saw. A lot of people are saying Anthony Joshua hasn't been the same ever since the first Andy Ruiz fight. He's more delicate. He's more punch shot. He's more afraid to take risks ever since that fight versus Andy Ruiz. And that tenacity, that will of Anthony Joshua that got him the fans in the first place, that part of Anthony Joshua is missing right now, is what a lot of boxing fans is saying. Now, he's making technical, fundamental improvements as he's gaining more experience, as shown in this fight. The thing is, can he do that versus higher level fighters? Now, as I said, there's a good look that Anthony Joshua's making improvements when it comes to the departments where he was lacking that, and he's being more studious when it comes to the skill aspect of boxing. However, do y'all see him being a champion once again? Y'all let me know. Anyways, what would y'all like to see next from Anthony Joshua? Is there any other list of fighters that y'all want to see him against? And he got this win. Now that means he's going to have to fight a higher leveled fighter, as he was successful in his bounce back fight. Now comment, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. And I'm out of here, y'all. Peace.